Sandra, welcome to another episode of Asexualise, my asexual life. This is the place to be for education about asexuality, so subscribe and hit the bell icon right now. On this channel, I do asexual education, information, and entertainment and lifestyle vlogs. So tonight I've got a wicked no sex movie review for you, but I saw it in 3D. So if you haven't seen the film Wicked yet, and you don't like spoilers, please do not watch this video any further because I am going to spoil the whole storyline for you because I have a lot to say about this movie, which will be very insightful. I'm not sure if anyone's going to review the movie in this in-depth way that I'm about to reveal to you. But as you know, if you follow this channel for a while, I like getting into the storyline and the actual kind of thinking behind it and how it relates to real life. And this movie I found particularly moving emotionally, as I know a lot of people did. But I'm going to be talking about the movie from an asexual perspective. Now, what is asexuality? If you're new to this channel, asexuality is a sexual orientation that's based on the lack of sexual attraction. I'm personally a sex repulsed, for me, asexual, but I don't mind if other people have sex, like it, want it, need it, and it's consensual, right? So I'm sex repulsed for me. And I personally don't like to see sex in movies. I don't like nudity. I don't like to see sex in movies. So I try to find as many movies as possible without sex in them. And Wicked did not disappoint in that respect. Now, if you didn't know the story of Wicked, I have seen the story years ago at the theatre as well in London, and that was really good. So this is the movie which is behind the Wicked Witch, right? What made her be the Wicked Witch? But this movie was directed by John M. Chu, right? Jon. My dad's called John actually, but John, right? And he directed two movies that I love, Step Up 2 and Step Up 3. So I knew this musical extravaganza movie was going to be absolutely amazing because the director is fabulous at directing movies that have music and dancing in them. And this did not disappoint in that respect. There was a lot of dancing, a lot of singing, a lot of musicality in this, which I found absolutely amazing. But the storyline, I'm like, OMG, do people really understand the depth of this story? Do people understand that Glinda, who's meant to be a good witch, and Elphaba, who's meant to be a bad witch, actually, it's really the opposite way around in this movie? What am I talking about? Let's start at the beginning. So Elphaba is a child that, when she came out of her mum's womb, is green, right? So you see the birth of Elphaba in the beginning of this movie. But before that even happens, something really traumatic hits you. As soon as you go and watch this movie, you find out that the Wicked Witch is dead. And you just see her hat there in like a puddle of water. And it's really, really powerful and strong because in the beginning of the movie, they tell the ending, which is the Wicked Witch is dead, right? And then they reveal what happened to make the Wicked Witch dead. Now, throughout this movie, you begin to like the Wicked Witch a lot and realize in this particular part, because it's a two-part movie, the Wicked Witch isn't actually wicked at all, right? So this is why I think this movie is so powerful. And I think a lot of asexuals can relate to Elphaba in the movie. I'm going to go on to why I think that is shortly. So Elphaba, like I said, is born green. The parents rejected her because they didn't want her because of her color, right? She then gets looked after by a bear. So they've got animals in this that talk in this movie, and she gets like adopted by this bear who's a friend of the family's by the look of it. I think I couldn't quite work out what the bear was in relation to the family, but you can tell me if you've seen the movie. Anyway, she goes to like be under the bear's care, but she still gets to see her sister. So I think the bear is like a helper to the family, but the bear is one that predominantly caretakes for Elphaba because the mother and father don't really want to know her, right? And later on, you see that she has a sister, but you find out that she blames herself for the fact her sister is in a wheelchair because her parents gave her, I think it's milk thistles, all the time to make her skin white, supposedly, instead of green. And she was then born too early prematurely. And so she has deformed legs that are not the correct size. But you don't find that out till partway through, like 3/4 of the way through the movie. So you got Elphaba, and obviously you have the pain of how she is not. Oh, hi, Warren. Nice to see you. Lots of love. And so, you know that in the beginning of the movie, I told you that the Wicked Witch is dead, right? You just see her hat. And so what happens is people ask Glinda, who's like looked up to at the beginning of the movie by all the people in Oz. They ask her, like, what makes someone wicked? And this is the whole purpose of this movie. It's examining the psychology of what makes someone wicked, what makes someone so bad, what happens in their past and their childhood to make them turn out into what people would call a monster. But I have to say, in this movie, they are mistaken about the Wicked Witch. She's not actually wicked in this movie. That's a whole shocker, right? I've never ever seen the story told so in depth with so much crystal clear clarity that Elphaba is not wicked at all in her heart and soul in this movie, right? But you follow her story of from birth about how she's rejected by her parents, and then she's rejected and ridiculed by society and by her sister's school, right? And I think this is a way asexuals can relate to Elphaba, because a lot of the time asexuals, we are left out in school and colleges and universities a lot of time, particularly school and college, for being different. We feel differently about sex. Usually we feel differently about relationships. We can have some similarities, but we aren't the same as everyone else. And I think growing up, we end up noticing that we are different to other people. I've always been different to other people. This film actually left me feeling a bit sad because I could relate to the fact that, I was bullied at school. So Elphaba is mocked and humiliated, and there is a warning at the beginning of the movie of discrimination because she is being discriminated against. And I think that's such an important thing because obviously asexuals, we're a minority sexual orientation and we get discriminated against because we're not the same as a majority sexual population, right? And so I think if you're talking about like being different, if you're talking about feeling left out, if you're talking about being ridiculed, I think that's something actually asexuals can relate to a lot, because as a community, some of us are unfortunate enough to experience ridicule and people making fun and people not believing in who we are and people not wanting to know us because of our sexual orientation, or saying that they'll be friends with us or want to know us, and then really not being uncomfortable with our sexual orientation. And I think if you take Elphaba and what happens to her throughout the movie, then you can see that there's similarities in the way she's treated in that way. Warren, that's true. I was always bullied. Oh, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you experienced that as well. A lot of asexuals do have anxiety and depression, and it's not known whether the anxiety and depression is because we are so different. We were left out or bullied and ridiculed at certain parts of our lives because we're so different. So I think that might be why a number of asexuals do have anxiety and also do have depression. And a number of us also have PTSD because we've had traumatic experiences. Some is related to our sexual orientation. I mean, some people are like, oh, are you asexual because you've had a traumatic sexual experience, right? And that doesn't make you be asexual. Asexuality is not the same as having sexual trauma. However, a lot of asexuals are going to be more prone to being in positions where we're subjected to sexual traumas and abuse because people think they can change our sexual orientation by having sex with us. They think that, as someone says in my Asexual Perspectives book, it's like magic dick theory. They believe that if you have sex with them, you're going to magically not be asexual anymore. And it's the fact you haven't had good sex that means you're asexual, which is not true. It's entirely not true. But this is what we're subjected to. So, of course, it makes asexuals more vulnerable to sexual abuse situations for those of us who don't want, like, or need sex in the first place. And because society drums it into us that you have to have sex in order to be loved in a relationship, right? Which is so backwards and so wrong. But this is what happens. So I think there are parts of Elphaba's story that asexuals can relate to a lot, with being ridiculed, feeling left out, feeling alone, feeling like they just don't belong in this world. And the world can be quite harsh and difficult to them, to us as asexuals, you know? So I was really profoundly touched by this movie. I was, and still am, feeling sad after it. And I don't like watching movies that make me feel sad. But I knew that this was going to be an emotional movie because I've seen a lot of clips from it. Warren, I've been told that, but I don't want to do it with anyone. I'm glad that you don't want to do it with anyone, despite what people say, you know. It's terrible when people are trying to push us to do things we don't want to do. And you know, people shouldn't be doing that. People shouldn't be trying to change what's different. And I think the Wicked movie really hits home about that we shouldn't be trying to win a popularity contest. We should be ourselves, which Elphaba actually represents. The Wicked Witch, Elphaba, who people term the Wicked Witch, is actually the person who's got a good heart and is the most caring in the movie about animals and stuff like that. So what happens is Elphaba, I'm going to fast forward a little bit. So Elphaba drops her sister at a new school, the one that's disabled in a wheelchair, with her father. But the father insists that Elphaba goes with her to make sure that she's going to be okay for her first day because she doesn't want anything happen. He doesn't want anything happening to her. And he wants Elphaba, who's the big sister, to look after her, right? But Elphaba wants the sister to have her own freedom and not feel like she has to be taken care of because she's okay to look after herself to a certain extent. And she wants to give her that freedom, but the father insists. And what's so horrible about this is Elphaba's always left out, right? The father always wants to talk about the other sister in the wheelchair and how you know, how everything's got to be geared around the other sister, not around Elphaba. Like, he doesn't care about Elphaba. He's indifferent to her, and he makes it clear he doesn't really like her, that she brings shame upon the family. And he doesn't, when he first disowned her and the bear looked after her and sort of brought her up, he didn't completely disown her because he uses her to be able to look after the little sister. But everything is geared around the little sister, and Elphaba feels left out. You know, it's always the sister, whatever the sister wants. You know, you've got to make sure the sister's okay. So Elphaba feels rejected by her parents and feels so lonely, left out and lost. And like, no one cares about her. And so in the school, what happens is the girl, her sister, after the father's left, Elphaba's sister, then has a teacher come and wheel her away from Elphaba because the teacher doesn't like Elphaba. She sees her greenness as like a threat and something she doesn't like. And so therefore she starts wheeling the sister away and says, I can take you. But just before this happens, you see the good witch, Glinda, right? She's not known as a good witch in the beginning of the movie. This is how Glinda and Elphaba, that becomes a wicked witch later, this is how they met. This is a backstory of how they met. So Glinda immediately sees Elphaba and wants to change Elphaba. She sees like Elphaba as a horrible sight that doesn't fit in, doesn't conform, and she wants to immediately change her and assumes that Elphaba is not happy with who she is, because Glinda has to be the most popular girl in the whole of the school, and she has to have everyone around her thinking she's great. I actually really didn't like Glinda in this movie, and I don't know how other people feel about it, but I really felt like I related a lot more to the person who then becomes a wicked witch. Do you know what I mean? So it's very interesting. So Elphaba I related more to than Glinda. Glinda is very superficial. She's into popularity. She just wants to like stick to conformity, but not just stick to conformity, be part of the reason that people want to conform, because she's, you know, she has to have the latest makeup and the latest dresses and shoes. She's got to look a specific way to be popular with everyone. So I found it hard to even, because I know Ariana Grande, is that how you pronounce her? And then she's the one who plays Glinda. And, or is it Ariana Grande? I can't even pronounce her name. Ariana Grande. I don't know. Anyway, people will probably laugh at me trying to pronounce her name. But anyway, singer, you know, she is playing Glinda, which I know has been a dream from all the clips I've seen. I'll have to watch it. Ariana Grande. Is that how you pronounce her name? Oh, anyway, let's move on. I'm sure someone will correct me or laugh at my pronunciation. But anyway, I actually didn't like her in this movie. Like, it was hard to like the actress when I didn't like her character. I really didn't like her character. I'm like, she's so superficial. She's so shallow. I mean, in terms of aesthetics, I guess the dresses look pretty on her. I guess loads of people would think she's pretty. But in terms of her personality, it's awful at the beginning, particularly, you know, very, very superficial. And Elphaba, you know, it's very comfortable. Although she doesn't like being mocked and it really does hurt her, she still stays true to who she is throughout a lot of this movie, and until Glinda later on becomes friends with her. So I want to, before I get onto that, I want to talk to you more about this. So this is a really big distinction that I think other movies haven't really shown, is the fact that Euphaba is the one that's genuine, authentic, raw, real, being herself, her green self, and she's immediately defensive with people. She gets fed up of being asked the same questions, like, no, I didn't eat grass as a child, no, I'm not sick, and all these type of things, that the things that people come at her with. So the reason why this is such a relatable film for asexuals is because asexuals get mocked for being their real, true, authentic self a lot of the time. Asexuals find it hard to be their authentic self in a world that's trying to change them all the time. I'm talking in third person, but I'm asexual, right? I haven't had all of these experiences personally, but I know as a community we have, right? And and I have had the personal experience a lot though of people in private message trying to sell me on one of their services or programs because they're trying to fix me. Do you know what I mean? It really infuriates me that they even think I need fixing, like something's wrong with me, right? And so, and usually it's if I'm having ill health or something's going wrong in my life, right? I know that eventually the time will pass and it will be a better life, right? But when I'm going through difficult times, I want empathy and caringness and compassion, not someone in my inbox trying to sell me their very expensive service, right? So when I saw Glinda talking to Euphoba about the horror of her. Glinda was talking about the horror of her and how she'll want to change who she is, and Euphoba didn't, and I think they captured really well the fact she's strong and tough, but it does hurt her, the comments and the criticism. And I think that's how difficult it is for asexuals. We do get people who just don't understand us and they don't get us, right? And those people try to change us a lot of the time. But it's not actually us that's the problem. It's people's attitudes towards us that need changing, not us that need changing, but people's attitudes. And people shun people when they're not comfortable with the situation. So as asexuals, with people who are not comfortable with our asexuality, they will try and mock us, put us down, belittle us, not be nice about our sexual orientation, say you just haven't tried having sex with this person yet, try and take away our personal power and control us, right? Which is basically what Glinda's trying to do. She's saying to Euphoba, oh, you must think you're so horrible that you need my help to change you, and I'll help to change you. But Euphoba never said that she needed changing. And in Euphoba's, words, she's saying that, she's not sick. She hasn't grew up eating grass as a child and all these things, right? And as asexuals, we get a load of questions fired at us left, right, and center. And you end up already having a list of responses to people. Just like Euphoba has a list of responses to people who don't like her green skin color, we end up having a list of things like, no, I'm not asexual because I just haven't had good sex. I'm not asexual because I just haven't tried your dick yet. I'm not asexual because of a past traumatic experience. I'm not asexual because I'm being celibate. I'm not asexual because someone's told me I can't get laid. I'm not asexual because I just haven't had sex for 2 months. I'm not asexual because of my religion. These aren't asexual things, right? But all the time, and they'll ask do asexuals masturbate? Do asexuals watch porn? Do asexuals do BDSM stuff? As an asexual, have you ever had sex? Have you ever masturbated? Have you ever been attracted? Have you ever touched? Do you like blowjobs? Do you like up the bum? What do you like? You know what I mean? All these really inappropriate, questions. And you end up just giving them over and over again, different people, the same sort of responses, because you get so bored with people making the same assumptions, having the same questions. When I was active on dating sites, which I'm not anymore, I got guys going, do you mind if I ask you a question? And I'm like, oh no, here we go again. Another question. I bet I've heard the question before. And they say it and make it sound like, oh, do you mind if I ask you a question? Like I've never been asked a question like this before. It's ridiculous. Anyway, I'm going to Warren in chat. Cynthia and Ariana are ace actresses, though. They're both ace ladies in real life as well. And I get lots of nasty people at me saying, do this, and that is valid. Cynthia is not asexual. Cynthia is bisexual. Look at Wikipedia. Cynthia is bisexual and queer. So that's what she says she is. So as far as I know, she's not asexual. And Ariana Grande is sex positive and been married before to guys. And she is a promoter of sex positivity. So her brother is gay and she sticks up for LGBT rights, but she is sex positive. And Cynthia is bisexual and identifies as queer. So as far as I know, neither of them are asexual that I know of. If you can find Warren articles that say they're asexual, please do. But I do my research before I do movie reviews, and that's the state of play with both of them. Actually, Ariana is currently in a relationship with the guy who plays Bok in the film Wicked. That's who she's in a relationship with since last year. And she met him on the set of Wicked. Warren's like, oh, sorry. Yeah, make sure you check facts first. It's very important. because we don't want to spread things that aren't true. But I'm just saying how, as an asexual person, I relate to the movie for the community, you know? And so, although both of them are supportive of LGBT stuff, and obviously, you know, Cynthia is bisexual, so she's LGBT and identifies as queer. But yeah, Ariana has got, you know, as far as I know, he's heterosexual boyfriend. So as far as I know, Ariana's heterosexual, though I think the chemistry between Cynthia and Ariana off the set of Wicked, but doing interviews, I think they look like they're in a relationship a lot of the time because they're always holding hands. They're always holding hands with each other and got their arms around each other. But Cynthia is actually the one who plays Euphoria is actually in a relationship with a woman. So currently. And like I said, Ariana is in a relationship with the guy who plays Bok. So neither of them, as far as I know, are asexual. You know, she promotes sex positivity. Ariana does. You know, there's some asexuals are sex positive, obviously, but as far as I know, they're not asexual. But I was just saying in asexual perspectives because I think asexuals can relate to Euphoria about the fact that she's like an outcast because she's different, because of the way people treat her being different, because people assume that she needs to be fixed or changed in some way. This part of the movie, this first part, showed her how she has a kind heart and she's caring and loving towards animals and she cares about them, you know, and she wants to do good. Warren says, I mean, they're awesome ladies. I meant, sorry. It's okay, Warren. Just important we tell the facts. So as we know them, I mean, obviously media personalities, you don't know the true facts, only them really know it, but you can only go by, you know, Wikipedia is usually in general quite accurate, but, you know, it doesn't mean to say it is. So we don't know what goes on in the private lives of people. And there are more and more people coming out as asexual that weren't coming out as asexual before. So, you know, if you ever do see either of these people come out as asexual, please do send links to that. But otherwise, as far as I know, they're definitely not, as far as I know. So, yeah, we must always like do our research. And so, Elphaba in this movie, you know, you get to see her side and you get to see that she's a very kind person. You actually see Glinda throughout the movie. You see Glinda as superficial. She changes a bit, but not really. So she's very superficial. Well, you could say she has changed, but then the ending suggests she's not fully changed. You know, she changed for a while, but her true nature came back. Right. So Glinda is in the beginning superficial and she's all about popularity, all about looks, what people think of her, and making sure that she looks perfect all the time, right? Which there's no such thing. Euphoria is used to being an outcast, used to being an outsider, used to being different, and she's used to people laughing and mocking and bullying her, but she doesn't like it. You know, it does hurt her. It is difficult for her. But Euphoria in this movie, you see the fact that when she goes to school and the father asks her to look after the sister on her first day, the sister who's in a wheelchair, Euphoria ends up getting angry because the teacher doesn't want Euphoria to take her own sister, go with her own sister to her room or anything. She doesn't want her near her, and she wants to take the girl away from Euphoria, her sister away from her, and wheel her in a wheelchair. But the sister doesn't want to go. The sister wants to be independent and go on her own, right? But she doesn't want to be shown up by Euphoria. And what happens in Euphoria gets really angry and uses her powers to like destroy some of this like school building, right? Not because she intended to do that, but because she can't control her emotions and her powers. But this teacher who teaches sorcery, you know, then she covers for Euphoba and says that she did it to teach people a lesson into what actually goes on here and what they got to be prepared for. But then she forms a friendship, well, more of a mentorship with Euphoba, and Euphoba really trusts her. And you find out in the towards the very, very end of the movie that she actually has been using Euphoba all along. So we go back to question in the beginning of the video all the time, the movie, that I say video, it's not out on video yet, as far as I know. We go into the beginning of the movie, what makes someone wicked, and you see this all unfolding. So you see that Euphoba trusts this woman who's a teacher, teaching her how to use her magical powers, but she's always saying, oh, let's use them for good. If you can hone your powers, you can do a lot of good. So she's like a teacher, and she believes in Euphoba when no one else has, and she takes her under her wing, and she sticks up for her and covers for her. So you think this woman, this sorcerer type woman, is on Euphoba's side, and you don't really question it that much. You just think, oh, you think that Euphoba is the one that's going to turn her powers into evil later on in the movie, but you don't know how. And you think this woman is just like helping her at the moment and trying to do good. Later on, you find that she completely betrayed Euphoba. And what happens is Euphoba's always looked up to the Wizard of Oz. Euphoba's always wanted to be with the Wizard of Oz and like have him by her side as like a mentor. She believes that she'll be accepted by the Wizard of Oz. She'll believe that she believes that the Wizard of Oz is everything. This is again very difficult. This is a very, very important lesson in life, is that we shouldn't look up to people and idolize them and put them on a pedestal so much, especially like she does this from birth, idolizing the Wizard of Oz, thinking he's this mighty, powerful sorcerer wizard, and that he's just so grand and amazing. So she always looks up to him. She always wants to be with him. She always feels that if she's with him, she'll be accepted for who she is. So she's always striving to be validated by the Wizard of Oz. Since growing up, ever she can remember, she's always wanted to be with the Wizard of Oz because she thinks he'll understand her and he will validate her, and she'll finally get the recognition and validation she deserves to be in her own personal power and in her own right. This is a very important part of the movie, right? Because you can see, if you pick through all the story, you can see how things change for her, because she believed in the Wizard of Oz. She thought he's the most powerful, mighty wizard that could help set her free from herself, if you like, by believing in her and by making her feel good about herself and by validating her. And this is also what this woman sorcerer does, this teacher at the school. She makes her feel validated. She makes her feel like safe, that she's okay to be herself. And Euphoba looks up to these people and respects them and thinks it's amazing to be held in high regard with her powers from them, right? This is very reflective of real life, when we can get into abusive relationships if we've had bad childhood neglect. For example, she's neglected in childhood emotionally. She's bullied. She's discriminated against. She's made to feel like she can't be herself. And this is reflective of what happens in real life. Because when for years and years and years you're not validated, you're not understood, you've got no one fighting your corner for you, you've got no one who truly understands you and is being on your side, you just get depleted and depleted and depleted of energy, and you get very hardened, which you see in Euphoba. You see Euphoba getting very hard and defensive because people always assume the worst with her just because of her skin color being green. Right? This is where it comes from, because people don't like looking at her. People can't stand to look at her, and they think she's evil just by her skin color and stuff like this, which is obviously is reflective of some people in society who are discriminatory against certain skin color, even if it isn't green. Do you know what I mean? I love coloured skin personally, but you know what I mean? There's a lot of people that still get discriminated against in this world because of skin colour. So there's a lot of themes going on this movie, and I really love the depth of the story. I thought the depth of the story was more outstanding than anything else in this movie. Right? And other people seem to like the costumes, the dancing, the musicality, which are all great, but I don't think anything was as good as this story. I thought the whole story made the movie. In some parts it was a bit slow. It was a little bit like, oh, this is quite a long movie, because it's really long. It's like 2 hours and 40 minutes, but by the time you've had the trailers and adverts, you're in there for 3 hours 5 minutes, right? And so, you know, that is a bit slow in parts because it's a story more than an action-based movie, this particular part number one. I think the second one's going to be different. I've watched a video that says some spoilers about the second one, but I got lost in it. I'm like, I don't want to hear any more about the second one. I don't want spoilers. Right? I've had enough of spoilers. I'm like, why am I watching this? I don't want to know. And so so yeah, that's what I think is really important about this movie, is the whole storyline. Warren says sorry if he's rude before. It's thank you for your apology, Warren. I appreciate that. I just like to say the facts for the viewers, you know. So let's move on. But I appreciate and accept your apology. Thank you so much. And so Euphoria, I think I can relate to a lot in terms of her character, because I think asexuals get a lot of this type of treatment because of our sexual orientation. We get people who are like so uncomfortable with our sexual orientation, they have to belittle us or put us down or try to invalidate us. There's a lot of people that think we should be wearing makeup and wearing tops that show our cleavage and are you know, just to attract the opposite sex, when we're not interested in having sex. Well, I know some asexuals on the grey part particularly are okay with having sex, right? But in the main, you know, like I've had people in the past say to me, a woman in the past saying, oh, why don't you wear, you know, like you keep yourself covered up, why don't you wear like low cut tops and stuff like that and show your cleavage and stuff like that? This was a woman who said this to me, an older woman, and I'm like, because I'm not interested in doing that. It doesn't mean to say that I could never ever do it in my life, but you know what I mean? I'm not going to do it because someone tells me to do it. And in general, it's something I don't usually do, right? And so I think it's very important they share Euphobia's story. So Euphorbia goes on in the movie, and because she's got this teacher that wants to teach her sorcery, if you like, at this point you think she's an ally to Euphorbia. And she convinces the father that Euphorbia can stay in the school because she wasn't going to go to school, only her sister was. And then she teaches Euphorbia, well, tries to teach her how to hone her powers, supposedly. Glinda ends up getting a room with Euphorbia, and Glinda wanted to be the sorcerer, if you like. She wanted to be a wizard. She wanted to learn magic and have a wand and everything. So she wanted to be taught by this woman. But Euphorbia ends up being taught by her. So you see Euphorbia being taught by this woman, and Glinda and Euphorbia have to share a room, right? And they share this room, and they do a song in the beginning where they really loathe each other, and they say they'll always loathe each other. And you see Glinda being so prim and proper and stuck up. Honestly, I really got annoyed with her, to be honest, because in the movie she gives Euphorbia this tiny little piece of the room, right? She puts all her clothes in front of it so she can't see Euphorbia, and she gives her a bed saying this is good and covers the windows up with sheets, right? And basically shoves her in the corner and then makes out like she's doing her a favor. And Glinda does this a lot. She makes out like she's doing Euphorbia a favor, but really she's just trying to cover her up because she's embarrassed by her. She doesn't want to be seen by her. She doesn't want to see her. And she, you know, she's got a real attitude with her, which is really bad. I didn't like Glinda at all in a lot of this movie. Even though you're supposed to later on like her, I just didn't like her for a lot of the movie, you know, because of all this type of stuff. I just thought she was so superficial, quite arrogant, very discriminating, very belittling, very patronizing. And, I really saw the contrast. Like, Glinda is actually the wicked one in terms of like not being nice to Euphoba, and Euphoba is actually the one who's more accepting of people and kind and wanting to be helpful, wanting to do good, even if her powers are out of control a lot of the time. She's not intentionally wanting to harm people, whereas Glinda is just wanting her own comfort. Do you know what I mean? So anyway, in a likely twist and turn of fates, Glinda and Euphoba end up becoming friends, right? Because Euphoba knows Glinda wants to have magical powers, knows she wants to be taught sorcery, and so she says that she's not going to continue having these lessons unless Glinda joins them. So Glinda gets a wand and they end up learning magic together. Well, obviously Euphoba's already got magic, but Glinda's meant to learn magic from a wand and how to use a wand and stuff. But Euphoba's naturally magical. She got natural powers since birth, right? Before she was born, right? So Glinda's kind of got the looks, but Euphoba's got the personality. And I mean, Euphoba's not ugly, but because she's got green skin, they think she's ugly, right? And they think she looks horrifying, and no one would want her like that. And so in this movie, there is a romantic love story. There's no sex, but there is a romantic love story. And this is when the prince enters the movie. Glinda immediately thinks the prince is going to be hers and they're going to get married, even though he hasn't asked her yet. And Euphoba has something going on with the prince. Euphoba and the prince have like a connection, but Euphoba and also Glinda have a connection, an instant connection. But at that point, they say it's loathing. And then they end up, because Euphoba has said to the person teaching her how to use her powers, that if Glinda doesn't get a wand as well and gets a wand Euphoba doesn't need a wand, but if Glinda doesn't join them, she has to have a wand to join, then she's no longer being part of that. It's actually Euphoba who's being really open and offered Glinda an olive branch. And Euphoba comes to a party. They have like this school party, and she does this very strange like dance where she's feeling with her hands and stuff. I really love this sequence actually, where she's like feeling the energy of people around her. This is Euphoba. So Euphoba's meant to be the horrible one, but in the movie you see she's very kind, and it's Glinda that's horrible and Euphoba's the kind one. So Euphoba is not wicked in the beginning. Euphoba is actually the one who's kind and got a loving heart and just wants to be accepted for who she is, be accepted, and people to like and care for her just as she is, right? And she gets taken in by the person who obviously is trying to teach her how to use her magic, and she believes that this person's in her own best interest, right? And I think this is so true of real life, unfortunately, that people who are good and kind-hearted sometimes do actually get taken advantage of. And if you're a person who has come from a traumatic background like Euphoba, who's had strong emotional neglect, you often do gravitate towards people who are going to give you the validation and acceptance you need, not realizing that a lot of them have ulterior motives. This is such a true thing in real life, and so Euphoba and Glinda become friends over this, because Euphoba ends up doing this weird crazy kind of dance, but she's like feeling the energy of the room. And so Glinda is, and kind of the people around are laughing at her at first, and then when Glinda finds out that she's going to learn magic alongside Euphoba, eventually Glinda gives in and decides to start dancing with Euphoba and put their hands together, and that's how they start becoming friends. Warren, what does the Wiz do in the film? Is he a teacher? Hope you don't mind me asking. Are you talking about the Wizard? The Wizard of Oz isn't doesn't come into the movie till the very, very end. So he's not a teacher, no. He doesn't. He's actually, the Wizard of Oz. He in resident at his home in Oz, and he's not a teacher at all. He doesn't come into the very last part of the movie. So Euphorbia and Glinda end up becoming good friends, end up actually becoming best friends, right? But you see their characters change, but they don't really change that much. Euphorbia changes to what Glinda wants her to be. So Glinda decides that, oh, now we're friends, I need to change your appearance, which isn't true friendship. Glinda's not really Euphorbia's friend in the sense that they have an emotional connection, but she still wants to change Euphorbia. She wants to put makeup on Euphorbia, give her different clothes. At one point, she wants to take her glasses off, but she's like, no, keep the glasses. She changes the clothes she wears. And this prince likes Glinda, but he also likes Euphorbia. And he likes Euphorbia because Euphorbia doesn't suck up to him. Euphorbia sees through all the bravado, the shallowness, and everything like that. She sees him for who he is, and she doesn't play along with his stupid, charming games, because you see a part of it where he's very flippant. He's like, oh, every day should be like when you're dancing and not caring about anything, and you should just like live life like this, not really caring about anything, not really working, just having a good time. But Euphorbia sees that he's not actually happy in his life, because if he was, he wouldn't be promoting this type of stuff and saying this type of stuff. But Glinda thinks that he's going to be hers and she's going to marry him, and Euphorbia actually has a connection with him. So the prince is kind of like torn between these two people, but Euphorbia says she hasn't got looks. She's got a connection with the guy, but she don't have the looks that he wants. And so it's very interesting. So the friendship progresses, but like I said, Glinda hasn't really changed when she's trying to change Euphorbia, and the prince notices that she's being Glindified, and that her clothes have changed and her hair's changed, her style of hair's changed a bit, and she's got makeup on and stuff. And so Glinda tried to change her, but Euphorbia did not try to change Glinda, right? But in order to get Glinda's approval, Euphorbia went along with being changed. And I think, once again, this is a real strong indicator of childhood trauma. They show the childhood trauma and the attachment styles really well. If you've learned about attachment styles and relationships and childhood trauma, you can see that at this point, Euphorbia is trying to please Glinda. She's trying to be a people pleaser and appease Glinda as well, by allowing Glinda to change the way she looks, the way she dresses. And so she's actually enabling Glinda to carry on this facade of trying to change Euphorbia. So instead of accepting Euphorbia for who she is, Glinda's actually in the wrong. Glinda's superficial, doing popular stuff, and then trying to make her popular, what she deems popular, because she deems something's wrong with her. So even though they're meant to be good friends emotionally, and I get the journey, I'm not convinced at all that Glinda's a good friend to Euphorbia. I think it's sad, that Glinda wants to change Euphorbia. Glinda's actually the one that's wicked to Euphorbia in this way. And so Euphorbia, who later becomes a wicked witch, is actually very good and kind-hearted and doesn't want to change people and just wants to stick up for what she believes in. Whereas Glinda's the one who wants to change people for superficial reasons and for selfish reasons. Glinda's the bad one. Glinda's the wicked one, and Euphorbia's the good one. So they've completely changed the characters around in that way, and the juxtaposition of it is very, very clever. Very clever storyline. Very clever that Euphorbia, who becomes a wicked witch, is actually the good one in this movie, and Glinda, who becomes a good witch, is actually bad in this movie, right? Because she's bad character traits, whereas Euphorbia's got good character traits. So they're taught by animals, and Euphorbia finds out that this goat that's teaching is actually being part of like a discrimination kind of movement, and she finds out that a lot of the animals are being relieved of their jobs because they believe animals should be in cages and they should be not allowed to speak and teach. So this goat teaches, but a long way through the movie, you see that Euphorbia gets to be friends with this goat, and they are actual genuine friends. And Euphorbia overhears a conversation with this goat talking to his other family of animals, if you like, and understanding that someone is trying to lock the animals up in cages and try to stop them from speaking and silence them and not allow them to be teachers anymore, because they think animals should be in cages and they shouldn't be given this freedom. But they've been teaching for years. And so Euphorbia really wants to help and wants to stop these animals from being in so much pain and distress, and from possibly losing their jobs and being caged up. She doesn't want to see the animals like that. So that Euphorbia really has a heart of gold in this. She really cares about animals. She cares about people. She cares about Glinda and making her happy. She cares about helping others. And she's just all the time being shunned or being told, that she's invalidated for who she is, what she looks like. And there's so much discrimination. It's so much is shown about why Euphorbia is the way she is, and how people are so horrible to her. How anyone could put up with the fact that she's been bullied and laughed at and taunted, you know what I mean? And so Glinda and Euphorbia, like I said, have become friends, but Glinda really is still trying to change Euphorbia. I don't call that a real friendship. It's not real friendship. And I think that's the problem with the movie, if you like, if there is a problem with it, is that Glinda isn't really Euphorbia's friend, even though you see they've got an emotional connection, a deep emotional connection. Glinda isn't really Euphorbia's friend because Glinda always wanted to change Euphorbia. Right, even though she accepts Euphorbia to a certain extent and cares about her deeply in some way, she still wants to change her. She still wants to change the way she looks. She wants to make her popular. She wants to change her. That isn't true friendship. That's not a friendship. Right, so anyway, it's very, very sad ending, I thought. So I'm going to kind of fast forward somewhat now because there's other different storylines going on. And what happens with the animals is Euphorbia finds out, she keeps having flashes seen of the goat locked up, and then it really happens in the classroom because she can see into the future. And so the goat is locked up in this cage after being taken away, and he's no longer about like these police people, and he's no longer allowed to teach anymore. And another teacher comes in and they just let it happen. And then Euphorbia gets so angry. She has these poppies and then she like releases them, and Poppy's got like opium in, which helps people to sleep, I guess. And she bought them for the goat, but then the goat was like said he doesn't want them, not now. And then he got led away by these police, and this other teacher comes in. And so Euphorbia gets really angry. And anyway, all these flowers go up in the air. Very great scene. And everyone falls asleep apart from the prince. And then the prince and Euphorbia, because this new teacher's come in saying animals should be kept in cages, and this is a small cub. And so they got this small cub in a very tiny cage. And the teacher was trying to convince people that, this is the future. This is what animals want. And Euphorbia's like, well, why is the cub shaking if this is true? Right? So it's just bullshit, right? Excuse my language. So anyway, after Euphorbia's got angry and all these poppies have gone up in the air, everyone's fallen asleep apart from her and the prince. They grab hold of the cub and they go on their bicycles to set it free, like they go and set it. I think they set it free. They go and let it have they go and take it away on their bicycles, and they go into like this forest type place, and then the cub drinks some water. But as far as I know, they're like releasing it in the wild. And this is when you find out the prince and the Euphorbia have a connection. Euphorbia is actually at one point holding the prince's face. And he's saying, oh, I'm shallow and superficial. And she goes, and and he says, oh, I'm this type of person. And she's like, oh, well, you're not actually, because if you were, you wouldn't care. Why, you're caring about the animals, and you wouldn't basically be in the situation now if that was really true. You're just like using a facade. And this is when she realizes she has feelings for the prince, really strong feelings for him, but she thinks she's got the right personality for him, but the wrong looks. And so once again, she feels rejected by him for Glinda, who's meant to be better looking and prim and proper and perfect. And she feels like she's second best. And so what happens in the very kind of latter part of the movie, which is quite dramatic, is she ends up going to see the Wizard of Oz, because he calls for her and says, the time is now, you can come and be with me, right? Because you're like, she's going to be like his apprentice. And the teacher who's taught Euphorbia how to harness her powers, she's like, oh, you're ready to be with the Wizard of Oz, right? So at this point, Euphorbia thinks the Wizard of Oz is the all-powerful, almighty wizard, and that he's the most powerful thing in the whole of Oz, and she really looks up to him, puts him on a pedestal, right? And she goes off on this like big train thing, and it's very interesting that the prince gives her like a flower, like a poppy, I think it is, to say good luck, but he kind of walks away from Glinda, and you can tell that he more actually cares about the Euphorbia. I was going to say the Wicked Witch, but she's not the Wicked Witch at this point, Euphorbia, than he does Glinda, right? And Glinda says, even though I know that he's no good for me, I still want him, right? Which again is reflective of society, especially when you've got like a popularity contest going on. Like when she wants to be the most popular person, she's more going for his looks and his charisma and his shallowness, rather than actually getting a guy who's good for her. And I think she knows deep down that he does like Euphorbia, but she doesn't want to admit it. So anyway, Euphorbia goes to the Wizard of Oz, but she asks Glinda to go with her. They both go. And this wizard's supposed to be the almighty, all-powerful Wizard of Oz. And in the end, it's so horrible. It's so horrible, the ending. Right? So in the end, Euphorbia finds out that the teacher who's been teaching her how to harness her powers, sorcery and all this type of thing, you find out that she, along with the Wizard of Oz, have actually used her to build her up to a moment where she can open this book and read these like scriptures that neither of them can read, right? That the teacher can read a few words, right? But it takes someone with special magical powers, Euphorbia, to be able to read this like spell book. And so Euphorbia ends up casting a spell on a monkey and gives it wings, right? Because this monkey's this teacher says, oh, the monkey keeps looking at the birds and the sky and the wings and basically wants wings. So Euphorbia opens this book up, it works for her, it flicks through the pages, and she's able to read this spell, and it makes the monkey have wings. But the Euphorbia's like, it's the monkey's being hurt. It's being hurt that it's having wings. I'm not making it happy, I'm hurting it. And she didn't want to do that. Right? That's not her intention. She was made to think by the teacher that that's what the monkey wanted, but it wasn't. She was conned, right? Because the teachers come at this point. I didn't say that, did I? So Glinda and the Euphorbia went to see the Wizard of Oz. He came from behind this powerful like mask, and he started talking and saying how amazing she was. And then this woman who was a teacher comes in, and you find out that both of them were the ones who were taking the animals away from teaching and putting them in cages and locking them up. And she made the Euphorbia, she talked her, deceived her into opening this spell book and casting a spell so all the monkeys would have wings. Because it's not just this monkey, it's a monkey in the wizard's palace, if you like. She's turned them all into having wings. But the teacher then says, Euphorbia must be, is such an evil person to do that. And, she needs to basically be killed or whatever, because what happens is Euphorbia is asked by the wizard and this teacher to help, like, rule the rule Oz and how powerful she can be. But she realizes the wizard doesn't have any powers. He can't even read any words of this spell book. He has no powers whatsoever, and he needs her. He said he needs her because he needs her powers. And the teacher needs her powers because the teacher doesn't even have as many powers as she does. She is the most powerful being there, not the Wizard of Oz. And Glinda thinks that Euphorbia should help the wizard and should help the teacher. But the wizard and the teacher have just been using Euphorbia. They never cared about her. They never trust, they never, when I say trust, I was going to say trust her, but they never had faith in her in terms of like being a good person, in terms of caring about her. They only believed that she had these powers that they could use to their own advantage. They're so selfish. So the Wizard of Oz, this teacher, they're both selfish. I really hated them for Euphorbia. They double-crossed her, they cheated on her, they deceived her. They made her feel good about herself. They validated her just to take it all away from her, to make her be used. Right? That's what they did. They made her feel so good about herself in order to use her. And she didn't want to be used. She didn't want to hurt animals. She didn't want to hurt animals, and that's what they were doing. They were caging them up and taking these animals away and stopping them teaching. And they conned her into doing the spell on the monkeys to make them have wings so they could be spies. They could spy on all the people of Oz. So they double-crossed her and they used her. Just like her dad used her to support the little sister. Just like Glinda was using her to change her, to make her more popular, like a little pet project, right? All these people were using it, even Glinda, although that's not meant to be what you get from the movie, I don't think. I think you're supposed to think, oh, they're really, really good friends, like best friends, and they parted their own separate ways. But if you really look, and you look at healthy relationships and unhealthy relationships, you discover that everyone in Euphorbia's life, at the very end of the movie, everyone has basically turned their back on her. Everyone's been using her, or everyone's been selfish. No one loves her for who she truly is. And you think to a certain extent Glinda does, but it's to a certain extent. Glinda still wanted to change her. Right? And what happens in the end is Euphorbia doesn't want to do the dirty work of the Wizard of Oz, doesn't want to do the dirty work of the teacher. And Glinda's like chasing after Euphorbia, but trying to get her back so that she works within the system that the Wizard of Oz and the teacher wants, to put the animals in cages and to basically like not neglect the animals and not care about them, even probably being abusive towards them, because they're making them have no voices anymore. This is absolutely horrible. So Euphorbia doesn't do it. She can't do it. And in the end, Glinda and Euphorbia try to escape together. But the guards are like coming. And so Euphorbia ends up having a broomstick. Does this spell. And Glinda thinks and says, Glinda even says to Euphorbia, you're not as powerful as you think you are, because the spell didn't work. So even at the end, Glinda did not believe in Euphorbia. Like she should have believed in her. She was invalidating her and her powers by not believing in her full powers. And so Euphorbia, right, is tears coming down her face, and Glinda does have tears as well. But Euphorbia actually conjured up a broomstick that, this broomstick actually comes alive to take her out there, and she offers Glinda to go with her and says, as a duo, as a team, we're limitless. And I think if Glinda had have chosen to go with Euphorbia, I think they would have made something beautiful together. Oh God, sorry, dropped my water. Sorry about that. I think they would have, been good together in a good way. Right? But instead, Glinda doesn't. Instead, Glinda decides to stay there. She gives Euphorbia a coat, so you see that she's being loving and caring towards her, but she gives her a coat to let her go, but just so she's not cold. On the broomstick, right? And Linda stays behind, and the guards grab hold of her, and Euphorbia comes back and says, it's got nothing to do with her. You want me, you don't want her. So even then, Euphorbia is sticking up for Glinda. She doesn't want Glinda to get hurt. By this time, you got the song Wicked playing in the background, Defying Gravity, and Flying Solo, because in the end, the guards stop grabbing hold of Glinda, and this teacher who's the one who's like been trying to harness Euphoba's powers, was supposedly teaching Euphoba sorcery and stuff, but really she doesn't have as much power as Euphoba. And Glinda's always wanted to be the magical witch, if you know what I mean. She's like, well, you don't know she's a witch at this point. She's always wanted to have magical powers, be able to do spells, be really powerful, right? Whereas Euphoba's a real powerful one. Euphoba's a real powerful one in terms of personality, in terms of like being her authentic self, and in terms of her actual personal magical powers. And in the end, the teacher takes Glinda under her wing. And so then that's how they become rivals at the end. And Euphoba's going off a broomstick saying, I might be flying solo now, but at least I'm flying free. She's not got anyone who's trying to get something out of her. She's got no one who's trying to control her anymore. No one who's trying to tell her how to look and what to wear and what to be. She's got no one telling her what to do anymore. She's got no one deceiving her or lying to her anymore. She's not part of the system that is trying to make her be something she's not. She's no longer Glindified. She's gone back to being truly who she is, but she's more powerful than ever because she realizes in the end that the wizard had no power. She's the one with all the power. She's not scared of the wizard anymore when she was originally. And she looked up to him and put him on a pedestal. And so this movie is the storyline is just phenomenal. And I'm even tearing up now. I don't think people realize the story. I think people think Glinda and Euphoba are really good friends, right? And there is an element of that in it. But when you truly break down Glinda's attitudes towards Euphoba, you realize she's not actually a friend. In the end, she chose to still be part of the system and let Euphoba go. She chose to be with people who betrayed Euphoba, who used Euphoba for her powers and didn't really care about her and give a shit about her. She chose to stay with those people and even work for those people and work with those people. She chose that over supposedly being Euphoba's friend. So you could argue that she was never really truly Euphoba's friend, even though she had an emotional connection with her. She never really truly cared about her and accepted her for who she was because she was always trying to change her, make her more popular with the clothing and stuff. That is actually the true story. When I say true story, obviously it's a fictional story, but I'm saying that is a true story behind the story, if you know what I mean. When you look deeper, because I don't think people are looking deep into this movie. This movie is so huge, the storyline. It's all about how someone becomes wicked, and it shows all the psychology. It shows the ill treatment of this person, Euphoba. It shows how she was the one who was good. She was the one who was kind. She was the one who was caring. She was the one who felt animals deserved rights just as much as humans. She was the one who wanted to set animals free. She was the one who cared about animals. She was the one who tried to make friends with Glinda and offer her olive branch. She was the one who accepted Glinda for who she was. She never once said to Glinda not to be superficial, to not be popular, to not wear those dresses. She never tried to change Glinda, but Glinda was trying to change her. And Glinda let her go in favor of two people who basically used her. And then you understand now why she decided to fly solo and be free, because she is the most powerful in there. She's actually the most powerful at this point in terms of her personality as well, because she doesn't suck up to the prince who every woman falls for, even though she feels for him and has feelings for him. She doesn't try to change others. She just wants to be her real, true, authentic self. And I think in these ways that many asexuals can relate to this character in terms of people trying to change us, people not accepting us for who we are. Even like, I'm sure like some asexuals as well have had a lot of childhood trauma where they had emotional neglect and they were made to feel important and cared for only by the people that want to use them or get something out of them. And these people are not truly our friends. I mean, how many asexuals have I come across who were friends with people. And then when they told them about their asexuality, that so-called friend not only couldn't accept their asexuality, was horrible about it, was belittling about it, was putting them down, was making fun of them, or, you know, like being like making the asexual person feel awkward, like they shouldn't be who they are and something's wrong with them. How many times have I heard this in lots of asexual groups? That's not true friendship, people. A true friendship is accepting the other person for who they are and trying not to judge that person, giving them a safe space to be themselves, not telling someone they need to change this, that, and the other. If you think someone needs to change a lot in order for you to like them and care about them, you should let that person go from your life, because they're not meant to be in it. They're walking a different path to you. And in the end of the movie, Glinda and Euphoria do go on different paths. They do go on different paths, and then that is basically how the next part's going to begin. But the second part, I believe, is not out till November next year. I was going to say last year, next year. So when we go to November next year, the first part have been last year, which is this year. So yeah, so it's nearly a year's time till the next one comes out. So yes, I'm excited for it, but I know it's going to be very, very upsetting. And I feel sad even this. I feel so sad for Euphoria. I feel so sad for this character. I thought, you know, Glinda is the one that is wicked in this. And Euphoria is the one who's actually kind. So it should be Glinda that's the wicked witch, really. And Euphoria at this point, who really should be the good witch. But obviously, the end of the movie, you know that things are never going to be the same between them, and they're going to be on opposite ends. And you know that she's going to become, or meant to become, the wicked witch. But very interestingly, the title of the second movie is called Wicked for Good, right? And I think that is so clever. Do you know why? Because I have told you that I believe Euphoria is good, and it's Glinda that's the bad one, actually. So if they're labeling it wicked for good, is she really wicked, or is it a pun on the word? And wicked for good can mean that she's always going to be seen as wicked for forever, but it can also be that she's wicked for doing good for people. She's seen as wicked, but really she's doing good. Do you see what I mean? So wicked for good can have two meanings. One, that she's wicked forever. One, that she's always going to be here as well. But also wicked for good reasons. And wicked for actually doing good. So I don't know what's in the second part of the movie. I did listen to some spoilers, but then I don't know how accurate they are, because this is a person who's just clunked together bits of information. I stopped listening to it because I got a bit confused, and then I'm like, I don't want to hear anymore, because I want it to be a surprise, you know. But there was something in there that sounded really horrible and sad, really horrible and sad. I'm like, oh my gosh. So yeah, I think according to the other you know, the other video, the video I've seen, I should say, rather than the other video I've seen, a video about the second part, it says the next movie is going to be very dark compared to this one. But yeah, I hope you enjoyed this movie review. I hope you can see how interesting this movie is, and the fact that the person who turns out to be the Wicked Witch in the end is actually the person who's the good one. And the good one, Glinda, is actually the wicked one in this, in some ways. Because she's superficial. She wants to change people. She wants to be popular. She's shallow. Although you do see her have a heart, and you do see her have emotions, and you do see her have a genuine emotional connection with Euphoria, she still basically betrays Euphoria in the end by going with the people that betrayed Euphoria and went behind Euphoria's back and was using her for her powers. And she thinks it's okay to do that. Glinda thinks it's fine. Glinda thinks, let's work with these people that are two-faced and used Euphoria, which she should never agree to, but she does, because she wants to, like, you know, be popular and stay with what's popular and stay with what the system does, you know. And it was sad. I felt very sad. I still feel sad now, but Christmas is coming and I don't want to be sad at Christmas, so I'm gonna leave the movie there, but I want to know what you think. Do you think this was a good movie? Did you like it? Did you understand the Euphoria is actually the good one and Glinda's the wicked one in this? Did you understand that? Did you understand the psychology of relationships? Did you understand the psychology of like childhood trauma and attachment styles and people pleasing and all that? Look, there was so much depth in this movie that I just don't think people would have grasped. It was a lot of psychology, a lot of just amazing backstory of the Wicked Witch that blew me away. It was, for me, it was the most important part of the whole movie. And I'm still welling up with tears now, you know, because I don't like seeing people discriminated. And I really can feel for Euphoria, you know. I've had people in my life that I thought were my friends that betrayed me after years, you know. I've had people that I thought was in my own best interest when really they're trying to use me, you know, and stuff like that. And I've come across other people like that, you know. And I know people that have certain traumatic pasts can be used like that, you know. And I've had to do a lot of work on myself to understand the psychology and the people. Oh, Warren's gonna say, let me know. I'll watch it and let you know. Oh, thank you, Warren. Yeah, I'll be really interested to hear what you have to say, because I honestly believe people are missing the whole in-depth psychology of this movie. I think people don't get the actual and grasp the actual seriousness of the topics it's covering. I think people still automatically think Glinda's a nice person, but I really didn't like her in this movie. I thought she was pompous. I thought she was like really shallow, and even when she was trying to be Euphobia's friend, I'm like, you're still trying to change her. You're still trying to make her like you, and you're really not accepting her for who she is, you know? At no point did Euphoria ever try to change Glinda, you know, ever. And so you can really see how Euphoria really wanted to be accepted and for people to love her for who she is. And when she's finally got the people that she thinks give her that, she then realizes that none of them do. That Glinda, when the going gets tough, is not there for her in the very end. Instead, she's going with the people that used her. And because she can be popular then as well, because she can have the sorcerer, teacher sorcerer on her side and basically rule the kingdom with the Wizard of Oz. You know, she's going to have the power and the prestige, right? And, you know, it's Euphoria who's the actual kind one in this movie. I don't know what's going to happen in the second movie, part 2, right? Well, it's the same movie, but it's a part 2 of this movie, right? It's the same movie. The director just split into 2 parts because he felt the story couldn't be told and do it justice in just one part. Warren, have an awesome Christmas. If I don't see you till afterwards, take care. Thank you, Warren. Thanks for being in chat. Don't forget to give this video a thumbs up if you like it, please. If you got any value and insights from it, don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already and hit the bell icon. And for anyone else who hasn't got my Asexual Perspectives book yet, please grab a copy. It's very insightful. It shows asexuality all across the asexual spectrum, and it tells what asexuality is like through the diverse stories, 47 asexual stories in this book. This is a book that shows asexuality in real life context instead of just giving textbook definitions of it. So you're able to actually see what asexuality is like in real life and how people overcome challenges in marriage, relationships, context. Because I asked them in this book, you know, are they interested in marriage? Are they interested in kids? You know, what's the difference between sexual attraction and sexual desire? Do asexuals watch porn? What advice would you give to other people just discovering they're asexual? All these type of questions that most people have are given the answers to by 47 different people, including me, 46 others besides me. So it's a really good book. Grab a copy of that on Amazon. And also grab a copy of Diary Confessions of a Hyperromantic Asexual, 78 Life Lessons to Ace Your Life if you want to find out more about psychology of relationships. It's really important, and dating as well. So yeah, grab these 2. They're best-selling books. Grab yourself these as nice Christmas presents. And yeah, I'll see you soon on the next video live stream. I might not be able to do as many videos over Christmas, but I'm gonna endeavor to do as many as I can. But I am really busy. I've got to wrap my parents' presents up still. I've only wrapped a few of those up, so I've got a lot more to do. And I'm going over to my parents' Christmas Eve, which is a day after tomorrow, and I haven't packed anything yet. I've got packed case to stay over there, right? So I might not be doing a live stream tomorrow. Anyway, watch out for shorts videos though if I can. But yes, have a nice Christmas if I don't see you before. But I'm sure I will see you sometime before. And keep your eye out for videos. Make sure you're having the notifications button pushed on so you can see every time I upload a new video or go live. And make sure you're subscribed as well. I know a lot of people watch this channel, but they aren't actually subscribed. So make sure you subscribe and hit the bell icon so you never miss an episode. Thanks, Warren, for being here. Appreciate you. Appreciate everyone. Lots of love. Take care and stay ace. Oh, and don't forget to say, yay! We hit over 1 million views on this channel. I'm so happy. Take care. Bye. Thanks for being part of this.